Just like in Uganda, Ghana and Nepal instituted restrictions to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, which made it difficult for parents to fend for their families after their workplaces were shut down. With schools also closed, it was left to the children to support their families. Angela Nabowe Kasule, the program's director at the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights, was one of the researchers involved in the study. Her office carried out studies in Karamoja, Buikwe, and Kampala. She found out that many children encountered very hazardous working conditions.
In Karamoja, specifically in Moroto, we came across children who are being paid with alcohol, local brew, remains of local brew, to be able to put something in the stomach because they were hungry. So you go out and you don't have what to eat. So you're given that, and that is what you have to survive on.
According to Kasule, the children interviewed in the study in Uganda ranged from those crushing stones with their bare hands in Kampala and parts of Napak, as well as those who were made to sell silverfish or mokene in Buikwe to enable their families to survive.
With her parents are somewhere else. They had left her with the grandmother, but the grandmother is so old, and this girl has to go and work in the gold mine to be able to get something for herself and the grandmother.
Some of the children even reported violence, harassment, and pay theft.
Their children we found in the fish farms in Buikwe. They are working 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they're supposed to be paid 7,000 shillings a day. But all the girls, we talked about to 16 girls, and most of those girls said that no one ever pays you that money.
Joe Becker, a children's rights advocacy director at Human Rights Watch in New York, says that reality was also apparent in Nepal and Ghana, the other countries that were looked at in the study.
Governments are providing inadequate assistance to families, and that is helping to cause a rise in poverty and certainly pushing children into exploitative and dangerous labor.
Angela Nabowe Kasule says these countries are not the wealthiest in the world, but they have been able to support some of their children struggling to support their families. She cites some examples of countries in the region that supported their citizens during that time.
Government cannot just come and say that we cannot afford this, because when you look at our spending, for instance, on social protection, it is 0.14 of the GDP. Rwanda is at 0.3, Kenya is at 0.4. Why should we lag behind? Because I'm not comparing Uganda to the UK, I'm comparing to Rwanda, I'm comparing to Kenya.
Like Kasule, Becca is particularly concerned that unless the governments are able to resolve these social challenges, another wave of COVID-19 infections could permanently put millions of children worldwide into the labor force, reversing 2 decades of work by global civil society organizations to combat the practice and potentially marking the first rise in child labor since 2000.
So it's certainly very important for governments, as they're able, to return to an adequate number of child labor inspections and to monitor this issue. And certainly when there are employers that are exploiting children and breaking child labor laws, they should be penalized.
Uganda has been globally commended for implementing one of Africa's strictest lockdowns to curb the coronavirus. President Museveni acknowledged the troubles that many, including the children, were going through at the time. The president pledged to provide all households with a radio so children could tune into school lessons, as well as food aid for those who could not afford anything to eat. Unless the state intervenes to support children and their family heads, rights groups are fearful that many children may never return to school, especially those from poorer communities that continue to struggle to pay school fees and other necessary expenses, such as exercise books and uniforms.
Tell him, very good.